Hey everyone, welcome to the very first Jira Advanced Roadmaps training. My name's Alex, and we're going to have a little bit of fun today. If you don't know, this is not a feature that is available for everybody. So I do want to start this training off by saying what I'm about to show you is for Jira Cloud Premium. So that does mean it implies that you gotta be on premium or cloud versions of Jira Cloud. Now, through the grapevine, I also understand that this is a functionality capability that is in data center, which is an odd thing to say these days. But Jira Cloud Premium Data Center, oops, I got it. So data center and Jira Cloud Premium and or Enterprise. Again, I want to disclose this right out of the gate because many of you are going to try to follow along. And if you're not in one of those two products, you're going to have a really hard time sticking around here. So just want to let you know that's the disclaimer. So before we get too far into it, let's just start off with our material here. We're going to share our screen and jump into a very quick couple of slides here. If you've ever attended any of my trainings, you know that I do not use the PowerPoint for anything other than telling you what we're going to talk about. And then we very quickly shift the gear. So this is the Jira Advanced Roadmap. I put plans in parentheses because I like to call it a jar. Jira Advanced Roadmap. I'm trying to make it a thing. But Atlassian formally calls it a plan. But it has had so many names. And through the grapevine as well, I hear that the name may be changing in the future. So we're just going to stick to jar for now because I just love that name. But we'll see what happens. Alex needs to get a white V-neck. Yeah, my shirt's a little on the looser side. All right. Let's what are we going to be covering today? So I'm going to obviously show you how to create the jar, the advanced roadmap. Then I'm going to go over the mechanics of what's inside of it. And then we'll talk about how to use it and then a couple of settings that you absolutely need to know. So let's jump into who I am, why you should care, who's this guy talking to you up here? So my name's Alex. I have a couple of channels. The main channel that you're on right now is called the Jira Life. If you haven't subscribed to the Jira Life, highly recommend you hit that subscribe button right now. We are a community, up and coming community, although we are gaining quite the momentum these days. And so basically, the Jira Life is the place where you want to be if you're within the Atlassian ecosystem. We live stream every single Thursday. So today at 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern. And we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, all things Atlassian. And we usually, almost every single episode, have a guest. So if you're very curious or interested to learn about not just Jira, not just how to use Jira, but really dive deeper, right? Become part of something. Highly recommend you smash the subscribe button here for the Jira Life. Now, aside from that, I do have a main channel, Tech Tutorials, where I have over 600 videos on how to use Jira, how to use Confluence, and the rest of the Atlassian tools. So if you're looking for more of a how-to, highly recommend you subscribe over to that channel. And if you scan that QR code, you'll be able to get to both channels. Aside from that, I do have an ACP 520. I am currently working on another certification to be started very soon. I'm trying to get my second one here. I have a bachelor's in computer engineering, master's in systems engineering. I've been in the Atlassian ecosystem since 2016, so quite a few years now. And I use Jira for an unhealthy amount of time, usually about 12 to 14 hours, almost every single day. So I think I know a thing or two about what I'm talking about here. So I'm excited to share this knowledge with you. So with that said, what are we covering in this class? So we're going to start off with creating the advanced roadmap, okay? And again, if you've never trained or attended one of my classes, then you know that this is about the end of this PowerPoint. We're not going to go any farther. We'll come back. We'll revisit it at the end. But we're basically leaving, and we're going to go over to Jira. So here we are inside of Jira, and we are going to show you how to use plans. Now, about 6 months ago, Atlassian did something very shady. If you were on the free or standard versions of Jira, this button right here, plans, was not visible. Right now, as of July 2024, everybody should have this button in their navigation, at least in Jira Cloud, that says plans. Now, when you click on it, one of two things are going to happen. You're either going to see a big blue button that says create your first plan, if you've never created one, or you're going to see another big blue button that says upgrade. And so this really does depend on which version of Jira Cloud you are on. But assuming, as I've been mentioning, I'm starting to sound like a broken record here, but as I mentioned at the beginning, if you are on Jira Cloud Premium or Enterprise, you're going to be able to see this. So assuming you have the right version of Jira, we're going to click on Create Plan. Now, again, if you've never created a plan, you should have some sort of a blue button in this general vicinity where you're going to be able to create your first plan. Now, when you come to create a plan, I want to take a second here to really focus in on what is a plan, right? So I think I'm jumping too far into the deep end here. So let me take a second and backtrack here. An advanced roadmap sits on top of Jira. So if we have Jira down here, the advanced roadmap is going to be up here. And I want you to think of the advanced roadmap kind of very similar to like a puppeteer, the person that moves the puppets down below, right? And the advanced roadmap is very, very powerful, but it's technically not Jira, right? It's an augmentation of Jira. And as such, when you think about creating a plan, there's a couple of different ways to create your plans. Most people will just create a plan just for the heck of creating a plan, but plans are strategic. Plans is not like Jira. Jira is a very tactical tool, right? Jira allows you to come up with a plan, a small one albeit, but execute, right? Most of Jira is execution, right? Planning your sprint, we spend a day or a few hours planning your sprint, but once you start your sprint, every single day is just execution on that plan, right? So Jira is very tactical. But the advanced roadmap, since it sits above Jira, it's designed to be more macro. It's designed to be like a 30,000, 50,000 foot view of what's going on in Jira. And it's powerful in that way. And so I like to tell people that Jira, the JAR, the advanced roadmap, is strategic, right? And as such, you don't want to be thinking small. You don't want to be saying like, I mean, you can make a plan per project. That's totally doable. But the beauty of the JAR, the beauty of the advanced roadmap, is that you can see an aggregated view of a lot of data, a lot of projects, a lot of boards. I'm going to show you this in a second. And this is important for me to tell you, right? Because when you go to create your plans, I don't want you to be thinking so small, right? I don't want you to be thinking day-to-day execution, but rather month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter strategy, okay? And so as we jump back into creating our plan here, you're going to have to come up with a name, right? And so again, you really have two ways to think about this. You can basically make a plan and name it the same as your project. I think you're handicapping yourself if you do that, which is, again, totally fine. A lot of teams do it. I personally recommend that every team do have a plan just for their project. But because this training is Jira Advanced Roadmaps for project managers, we want to be looking at our project as a whole. And as a project manager, we usually have a lot of moving parts. So that usually means we have a couple projects in play. We have a couple different teams that are all collaboratively working together to deliver something. So as such, when you're naming your plan, it is imperative, right, that you think a little bit bigger so that the plan is more effective. So what I'm going to do here, right, so usually I'll just come up with like an ATEC strategy plan, right? But again, you want to name it like an aggregation of a certain something. Maybe it's product-based, right? Maybe you're working on this particular product, or maybe you just want an enterprise strategy plan, right? So you call it the company name strategic plan or something. So just think big when you're at least starting off with your first roadmap. You can, of course, make smaller ones, but I like to tell people, especially right here when we get into this add word to your plan, when you're creating these advanced roadmaps, like a haircut, it's easier to cut hair off than to put it back on. So I like to make my plans bigger, bring in more data, because once we're in the plan, which I'm going to show you in a second, we can filter through the noise and get the data that we want. But it's harder to bring the data in, right? but it's very easy to kind of weed out data. And so again, bigger, I think, in my opinion, is better. So you give it a good name. Here you got to determine, are you going to make it private, which means you get to cherry pick who's going to see it, who's going to see the plan, who's going to see the data, or are you going to do it open? My opinion, open for your project managers, private if you really don't want anybody messing with it, right? And so this is going to be a very personal matter. I'm huge. Atlassian's huge on collaboration, right? I'm huge on open. I'm huge on team trust. So I'm going to do open, but your mileage is going to vary. So pick the version here, the access levels that make sense for you and your team. Now, once you do those decisions, now comes the fun part. We got to bring data into Jira, okay? Or to the advanced roadmap. And so how do we do that? Well, we have three options. We can bring in a board, which is usually a subset of data, right? Because remember, boards have like a special query filter that dictates what data shows on the board. We can bring in a project, which is my favorite. I prefer to bring all the data, right? So project is going to bring everything in because you can't guarantee that the board is going to have all the project data. Because remember, some boards are highly customizable, so somebody might have customized their board. And then you got your filter. Okay. This is my least favorite one because the filter is a subset of data, right? And so kind of going back to my haircut example, you've already trimmed the hair. So if you're going to go look for something else that's not in that filter, it gets a little bit challenging, right? And so you want to bring in the appropriate amount of data. Now, for simplicity's sake, and to eat my own dog food, I bring in my projects. So I'm just going to bring in a couple of projects here real quick. And you can add as many projects as you want with a caveat. There is a limit. The limit is 5,000 issues. And so you can bring in as much as you want until you hit that limit of 5,000. Now, Atlassian made a change very recently. I'm not very happy with because I used to be able to see how many issues I'm bringing into my plan. There used to be a number up here. I don't get to see that anymore, but I will show you there is a different way to see it. But annoyingly, there used to be a really cool number up here that as you added projects, it was telling you dynamically how many issues were going to be brought into your plan. So anyways, I have quite a few plans. As you can see, I have a bunch of clients, and I'm going to see an aggregated view of everybody's work. And so once you do that, your team is optional. I will talk about that later, but this is a much more advanced capability using the team. So we're going to leave it alone for now. This is more of a beginner's training. So feel free to bring the team if you're using Teams. If not, then you can leave it blank. It's totally optional. And just click the create button. So at this point, we've created our very first plan, right? And so now we have a plan. But what do we do with it? What can we use this plan for? Well, as a project manager, you should be very excited about a plan. Okay. The plan here is going to give you a very, very holistic view. Now, I do want to show you something real quick before we get too far. Okay. This plan view, there's a button over here, a toggle. There's a list view, which is the default view that you see. But there is also this timeline view. And if I scroll over to the right here, you're going to start to see that we have issues on the left here. And you're going to have these rectangular bars on the right. Now, that should look very similar if you've ever been in a Jira project, any Jira project, right? It should look very similar to, I don't have let me log into the right one. I accidentally clicked on the wrong Jira. So that timeline that we're looking at here, this one here, should look very similar to timelines in your Jira projects here, right? And so when you add like an epic here, you are able to put a date into your, let me pick a different project because this one's not working for me, right? You're able to put epics and then you're able to put rectangular bars. So the difference between this timeline that everybody has, whether you're on free, standard, premium, or enterprise, and this one, which is only available to premium and enterprise, is that with this one, you get two big, giant benefits. Benefit number one, you get to see all the issue types, not just the epics, not just the stories, because In this one that's free for everybody, the buck stops here. You get to see the epic, you get to see the story. That's it. On the timeline, you'll notice that when I hover here, I have an initiative. We'll talk about initiatives in a minute. But it's going to show you everything. And so watch. I can show you the initiatives, I can show you the epics, the stories, and I can even show you the subtasks. So that's very powerful in itself, that the Jira Advanced Roadmap shows you the entire hierarchy. This is powerful, folks. The only place you can see this right now is here. And you can technically see it in the list view, but the list view will not give you the timeline portion, right? You just see the hierarchy, which is cool, right? I can expand this. So you get to see the hierarchy in the list view if you have list view already, but you will not see the rectangular dates. So the timeline here is the only way to do it. It's the only way to see not only the whole hierarchy, but also all the dates associated with those issue types. Now, the second benefit that you get from here over the regular timeline is that we have fields. So I'm going to switch back to list view to make it a little bit easier. But you can see that we have the priority, we have the start date, the due date, the statuses, progress, assignees, and pretty much any other field that you have in Jira, you can pull it in. Almost, not all of them, but like 95% of them. And this is powerful, right? Because over here, back in our timeline, we just see the rectangular dates and the task. And that's it. We don't have any other context. We can assume the start date by hovering. You'll see the start date July 15. You see the end date July 30th, right? But over here, you can actually see both, right? So I can add more fields here. I can do my start date. I can do my due date. I can bring in components, dependencies, right? I can bring my assignee. I can bring in my priority. I can bring in the release, right? So I can bring in a bunch of fields and also still see the timeline. This just gets compressed, right? My screen, I'm a little zoomed in here. But this is powerful, right? This is, again, one of the cool features for Jira Advanced Roadmaps. So we'll pause here for a second because this is a good little introductory stopping point. And I'm just going to read some comments to see what's going on here. Okay, so this comment here, is this for Jira Cloud Free, Standard, or Premium? This is only a Premium and Enterprise capability, right? Only Premium and Enterprise. 5,000 issues total. We easily got more than 1,000 issues per sprint. So yes, so Felix, that's an interesting thing. 1,000 issues per sprint. Holy moly, that means your team is like, you must have at least 500 developers on that sprint. So, but yeah, the unfortunate reality is that 5,000 is the limit, and 5,000 is the limit in a lot of different places. In fact, I even think that a board, unless they really have changed. I know Atlassian's always making changes, but I could have sworn that even a Jira board can only maintain 5,000 issues at a time. So that's interesting. So Felix says he's got 15 teams. So that makes a little bit more sense, but you're still going to be fine because your plan's just going to have to be sprint by sprint based so that you can be looking at 1,000 issues at a time across your 15 teams. So anyways, let's see what else do we have here. Anything else, Bob, that we started? I don't see anything else. Could you confirm if we create and show dependencies between across? Yes. Okay. So Sushant, we're getting into the next cool part of the advanced roadmap. So now that we've established this baseline, let's get a little bit more tactical with the advanced roadmap. So first things, okay. So I'm gonna go solo here again because I do want to tell you guys again something important, right? When you are on premium enterprise versions of Jira, not only are you paying like 2 arms and 2 legs and a kidney, right? Because it is very, very expensive, but you get an added benefit of being able to alter your timeline. And I'm going to show you what this means in a second. But to fully take advantage of the advanced roadmap, I would highly recommend you do what I'm about to tell you, okay? And that is you want to add issue types above the epic, right? And this is going to make your advanced roadmaps experience a lot better. You don't have to do this. This is not a hard requirement. But trust me when I tell you, you want to create like an initiative or a theme if you're like a safe organization, right? Maybe you want to create like a feature or something, right? Something above your epic, because what the advanced roadmap does really, really well is it lets you categorize or group your epics. This is what makes it powerful, right? This is what lets us go beyond just the basics of Jira where we have a ton of epics. We can now strategically group our epics together, right? And so I'm going to achieve that by using an initiative. So let me show you what that looks like. So before we get even into the roadmap, right, your Jira administrator is going to want to do a couple things. So first, your Jira admin is going to want to go over here to the gear, click on issues, and you'll notice that there's an issue type hierarchy. Now, this is visible to everybody, but if you're not on premium, you don't get to manipulate. It'll just tell you like, hey, this is a premium only feature. Jira's going to do a really good job of reminding you that you're poor. I only say that jokingly, but in all seriousness, Jira will tell you you're not paying enough. Okay. So as you can see, I have an initiative and I have tacos. This is just my total sandbox. So please disregard the fact that taco is not a sandwich, right? And so what we have here is a modified hierarchy. So I've already gone ahead and done this. You don't have to do it, but you will need to. I mean, if you want to get the full experience, you will want to come in, add like an initiative, right? That also means you're going to want to create an initiative issue type, pull it into here. Now, once you have this here, so once you create the initiative issue type, once you alter your issue type hierarchy, the next step is you got to go to your project. So I'm going to go back to my station project over here. You got to go to the project settings. You want to expand issues and types, and then you want to pull in that initiative into this project. Not every project needs those extra issue types, but I recommend you have at least one project where those initiatives go to live, minimum, so that, again, we can group these epics. Because otherwise, you don't get the full effect of the advanced roadmap if you just use epics. And so I highly recommend you do something like this. Chavita is a sandwich. A taco is a taco. There we go. We got Dr. Cologne saving me here with the taco is not a sandwich. Okay. So once we have this set up, right? Once you've done these steps, because these are critical steps you got to take even before we make the advanced roadmap, then we can go to the advanced roadmap. And the first thing you want to do when you pull your data is go to your filters. Okay. Your filter may not be configured out of the gate to show you the entire hierarchy. So you want to click on filters here. And you want to alter your initiative where you're from to be the initiative. You can go to tacos, right? I have my tacos all the way at the top if you remember, but we'll keep it simple. We'll just go to initiative. And then usually it goes down to the story. You get to pick if it goes down all the way to the subtask. It's up to you again. What data do you want to see? I like to see the whole thing end to end, right? So typically I'm going to create my hierarchy to go from point A all the way through Z. And so again, this is all customizable to whatever you want to see. But to get the full effect, in my opinion, we want the whole hierarchy. Okay, so once we've set up those filters, then this part is going to look a little bit better. Because watch what happens if I only have the epic, right? I lost all my initiatives, which may or may not be a good thing, right? This is all very personable to whatever you want. And so I want to group my epics strategically, right? I want to say these epics are important for this effort, and these other epics are important for this other effort. So to do that, I need to show you the initiative. And that's what's happening over here. Okay. Next. Man, it's been a month and I've been trying to get over this cough and it won't go away. In the comments, if you got any cough remedies, let me know. I'm getting desperate at this point. Okay. So once we've figured out how to see everything, right? This next piece of information is very, very critical. So if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. I want you to highlight. I want you to put asterisks all over it, right? Here's what you got to do, or here's what you got to know. The advanced roadmap is not directly changing Jira. What do I mean by that? That means that anything I do in my advanced roadmap doesn't immediately reflect inside of Jira. My opinion, this is a really, really good thing. Okay. This is a really good thing because the advanced roadmap is strategic. It allows you to experiment with what if this, what if that, what happens if we change the dates? What happens if we add these dependencies? What happens if we create more epics, more stories, right? It's really good for being strategic. And as such, we want to be more experimental when we're being strategic, right? We don't really know the answer yet. And because of this, I love this capability. I love this feature that Jira's advanced roadmap allows you to experiment. It allows you to think. It allows you to brainstorm and collaborate with your team, come up with a plan. And when you come up with the right plan, right, once all the dust settles, then you can make those changes in Jira. So let me show you what that looks like. So let's assume that I'm going to create an issue here. I'm going to create a new initiative and train 100 people on how to use jars. Enter. Now, in the comments, something's not right. Can anybody tell me what doesn't look right? Something's off. In the comments, what looks off? Something is off. Bonus points for the first person that gives it to me in the comments. Bob's giving himself a little bit too much credit for monitoring the chat. I am peeking every once in a while, Bob, just to make sure things are going over there. So, Mahima, you are correct. No number. There is no ticket. And so essentially when you create anything in Jira, right? Again, this is just echoing what I just stated. When you're creating stuff in Jira, your creations, your changes, whatever input you provide into the jar does not immediately go back to Jira. And this is very, very important. Very, very important. Okay? Because a lot of people will make a lot of changes in the jar and forget to do the next step. And the next step is once you have your plan, once you've created the data you want, you will see that this big blue button on the top right corner has been illuminated. Illuminated. It is now blue. It wasn't blue earlier. And when I'm ready to push my changes into Jira, I simply click on it and it's going to give me a summary. It's going to tell me, hey, here's what changed, right? And you can see that we have an assignee that's unassigned. We have a priority that's critical. And we have a new issue. And so I'm going to click on Save Selected Changes. And when I do that, now we get a number. Now we have the right issue key. And more importantly, I can now go into my project. Right? I can go to the list view here. And you will see that this initiative that I created now exists. Right? And the next piece I want to tell you is that this is one directional, right? The advanced roadmap does not immediately update Jira, but the Jira will immediately update the advanced roadmap. So let me show you. So if I assign this one to me, if I change the priority to medium, immediately back on the advanced roadmap, I do have to refresh. But once I hit that refresh, watch what happens. We now have that initiative has me as the assignee and the priority is now medium. So just want to let you know that the beauty of the advanced roadmap, right? The beauty of this advanced roadmap is that it's not any additional overhead. This is very important for me to, I want to echo this a little bit more and spend a second here a little bit more, right? Using the advanced roadmap is no additional overhead on your team. So your developers, your scrum masters, right? The people on the ground floor interacting with Jira every single day, just because you're using the jar doesn't mean that they now have to do all this extra work. You as the project manager may have a lot more work to do, but them, the everyday users of Jira, this business as usual. They're still going to plan their sprint. They're still going to transition their issues. They're going to assign. They're going to reassign. They're going to change the priorities, right? They're going to do what they do in Jira, and they don't even need to worry about the fact that a jar exists. So to them, it's transparent. So they just get to change and work in Jira like they normally do without having to update another data set, right? And this is the beauty of it, right? Because again, when that barrier to use is super low, like it is with the advanced roadmap, it makes it so that everybody wants to use it because your developers are now, they're not going to be hindered by this extra new process. And you as a project manager, you're going to have the added benefit of like having this 50,000 foot view of everything, right? So you're going to go through the exercise of planning. You're going to go through the exercise of creating initiatives, linking them together, managing dependencies, updating field data, and then your team's going to receive that benefit when you push your changes into Jira, and then they're going to be able to go and execute, right? Because remember, Jira, great for execution. The jar, great for strategy. So let's take a break here and let's look at some comments. I will briefly touch scenarios, Johnny, but not resourcing. Resourcing is a little bit more advanced, and so we're not gonna get a chance to get into that. But let me know if it is of interest, because we can definitely do a part 2. But we're trying to do this one for beginners. Okay. So a couple more things that you got to know as a beginner, as a project manager, right? So once we've created our initiative here, so go back into Jira. The initiative is just the high level. So now we want to create children. We want to start linking epics to these initiatives. And there's 2 ways to do this. Inside your plan, you can click on the create issue button and you can create an epic. I don't like this way because the method that I prefer is to go to the initiative directly. And when you put your mouse over it, you're going to see that there's 3 dots. So if you click on those 3 dots, you will then be able to create the epic. And when you do this, this is my epic to train 100 people, and I hit enter, you'll notice that the relationship between the parent, that initiative, and the child, that new epic that I just made, is automatically established. And so I like that, because if you just hit the epic button over here, notice that it goes and creates it down below. And if I do this is my second epic, right? If I do it over here, now I have to go and link it back to the parent. So how do I do that? Well, this is actually quite easy. In Jira, I should say it's easy and intuitive, but in this jar, all we got to do is find that epic that we want to link to that initiative, and we just simply drag and drop. You'll notice that it turns blue. Blue's good. Red is bad. If it's red like this, no bueno. But blue is good, and we can just drop it. And that's it. That's all you got to do. Now this initiative knows that it has 2 children. And this new epic that I made knows who its parent is. So that's really, really good. Okay? But again, because these epics are not in Jira yet, we're not going to have a key, and we'll get into that in a second. But a couple of other things that I want you to know. The order in the rank is very important here in the jar. And so which epic is more important? Well, we can actually swap these around and say that this epic's more important than this one. And Jira is going to respect that rank. And that rank is propagated throughout the rest of Jira. And I'll show you that when I review my changes here. Now, a couple of other things I want you to know at this level. Okay. So when you are creating these new issue types, right, sometimes we make a mistake. And if you don't want this epic to be visible, there's no delete button. There's no like, I can't open it because it doesn't exist, right? It just redirects me to the board. That's no bueno. This issue doesn't exist yet. And so we can click on these ellipses and show that it doesn't say anything. But again, if you're like, you know what, I made a mistake, I don't want this epic, you can click this checkbox. There's a book actions, and you can remove from the plan. Okay. Now, because this issue doesn't exist in Jira, it's no hurt, no, what is it? No hurt, no foul, right? So it just poof, it disappears, and you don't care about it because it never actually made it into Jira. But let's just say we wanted to get rid of this epic, right? This one is an actual epic inside of Jira. Well, we can do the exact same thing, remove from plan. And I want you to know this. If you ever remove something from your plan, you are not deleting in Jira. This is not the same thing. So unless you physically go into that epic and physically delete it from Jira, removing them from your plan doesn't hurt Jira. So don't be afraid to remove things from your plan. You'll be like, this was not what I had in mind. Okay? So you can remove things from your plan. Now, with that said, I'm gonna skip to the end. And remember, I was telling you we're gonna talk about a couple plan settings. I want you to be aware of a couple of things. These are very, very critical. So I'm just gonna skip over to them. So in plan settings, there's just a handful of settings that I absolutely critical for you to know. So if you're taking notes or if you're multitasking, next 5 minutes, you're gonna want to give me your attention here. This is super, super critical. Number one, you are going to land in the scheduling page here. If you're using story points, you can bring your story points into Jira. This is a supported feature. But if you try searching for story points, it's not going to work because by default, I don't know why Atlassian does this, but by default, days is the measurement of your work, of your effort, of your estimates. And so unless you're using original estimate as your driver, which a lot of teams don't, or most teams are Scrum, that's they're using story point, you're going to want to come in here and check this checkbox. It's very critical. Number two, the dates, right? So when we're looking at our plan and we are looking at the timeline here, what dictates the start and the end of this rectangle is customizable. And so if you're using the start date and the due date, the default fields in Jira, awesome. But if you're not, let's just say you have like a target date, right? Let's just say you're not committing your team to locking in a time. You can change it to any other date field, right? And so here's where you can go and manipulate that. Now, unfortunately, you can only have one start and one end. You can alter them to be whatever date field you want. But if you want to see like two date fields, if you want to see your target end date and your actual due date, that's not going to be possible. So you're going to have to make a compromise and just pick one. Now, you can create multiple variants of your plans. You can create 2 or 3 plans that are basically the exact same sources and pick different dates so you can at least visually see them, but that will require you to have separate plans. So just keep that one in mind. Now, the next one's important as well. This is very, very important, folks. If you remember at the beginning, I was saying this, the plans are strategic, right? They're designed for, like, my opinion, monthly views, quarterly views, year-long views of what is your team working on? What are they doing? Well, in that period of time, in that quarter, they're going to finish work. Now, here, at least in the United States, I'm hoping that this is global, but I can't ever assume things, right? But here in the United States, a quarter is 90 days, right? Usually 3 months, roughly 90 days. And so you can see here that after 30 days, issues that are marked as done will stop showing up in the plan. So a very common scenario that I get, a lot of people freak out on me, is like, hey, yesterday I was looking at my plan and I had like 10 epics that were done, and all of a sudden they're not there anymore. Like, where did they go? Well, I usually have to remind them that Jira automatically, after 30 days of something being marked as done, will drop it from your plan for your shopping convenience. And that's not necessarily a good thing, right? Especially if you're trying to see everything. And so going back to, I forgot who had the 5,000 or the 1,000 issues, right? But Jira does this because, again, because of that hard ceiling that we have of 5,000 issues, Jira is going to be kind of like moving out all the stuff that's done. And so if you want to see all of the work, then you're going to have to bump this up. Watch, I have 25 issues in my plan right now. If I bump this up to like 100 days, nothing happens because my projects are so new. But you can put it whatever number you want, 365, and it'll show you the whole year. As you can see, I have one more issue that closed out within the last year that is now in my plan. So keep that in mind that the default is 30 days. And so don't freak out if epics are just magically disappearing. Nobody's deleting anything. It's just Jira trying to be nice to you and go and change this. At a minimum, I would put like 100 days because that's going to let you do quarterly planning, right? If you're doing PIs, this is going to be great from that perspective, because otherwise stuff's going to disappear on you and you don't want to freak out. The other thing you can do is you can kick out issue types. So let's just say we don't want to see epics at all. You can kick them out if you want. And if you don't want to see specific statuses, we can kick them out if you want. I don't recommend it, but just know that. Now, the reason we went down this rabbit hole was because of that. Remember earlier, I was telling you how to remove issues. If you remove an issue because you accidentally removed an issue, don't freak out because you can bring it back. And so anytime that you remove an issue, it will land here in this removed issue section, and you can simply restore it and put it back in the plan. So again, those are just some ground rules, some general settings here that I want you to be aware of that are super, super critical. Now, there's one more that I'm going to show you is that there's this issue sources here. Here is where we see that number of how many issues are in the plan. This number, this view used to be on the create page. I don't know why Atlassian got rid of it, but they did. But it's here. So this is the one place you can come and see it. So if I add a couple more projects, you're going to see that this number is going to go up. Man, I literally have no data in my projects. What is up with that? There we go. We got 39, right? I'm just going to add one more, see if I have any more issues. There we go, 48, right? So you can add and remove projects under issue sources. So those are all the plan settings you got to know as a beginner. Everything else that's in the details, we'll get back to that in a second. Okay, so here we go. We're back in the plan. We've covered some of these basics. What do we do with the plan? So I got 19 minutes to kind of convey how do we effectively use our plan, right? So obviously step one is you're going to want to create your issues, right? So part of your activity, right? As a project manager, you're kind of doing your work breakdown structure, right? Your WBS. And the Jira Advanced Roadmap is a phenomenal place to do that work breakdown structure because context, my friends, context. When you are in Jira and you want to create an epic, you can come in here, hit create an epic, give it a title, fill out all the fields, hit create, right? Then you're creating your next epic. You're doing the same thing. Then you're going to go create your story, right? So then you change it to a story. And then in here, when you give it a title, then you got to link it back to your epic. So you got to remember the parent. And so you got to link that way. And there's just a lot of activities that are happening here, right? And so you got to remember a lot of stuff when you're using the create button in Jira. Okay, not so pleasant. Disrupts your flow, in my opinion. You do have the timeline. So if you've seen any of my other videos, you know how much I love the timeline because in the timeline, we can create the epic, right? This is a super awesome epic, right? So I can create my epic. And then here I can create my story, right? I can change this to a story and go, this is an epic story, right? And it's fast, intuitive, right? It's quick, but there's limits. Limit one, what happens if I have two teams that have to work collaboratively on an epic? Well, hitting the plus button is not going to let me create an epic in another board or another project, right? Two, what happens if I want to create an initiative? Well, hitting the plus button down here only lets me start at the epic. I can't start at that initiative level. So this timeline view is quickly kind of limited, right? You hit the hard limits of the timeline, of the free timeline very, very quickly. But over here, right, we can create an initiative. Whoopsie. Right? We can create an initiative over here and go, come on, click in there. You know what? Every once in a while, you do got to refresh your jar because it just doesn't like to behave. So I'm going to do another initiative here. Oh, I got to pick my project. Sorry. Okay, there we go. So this is another initiative, right? And then let's just say we start breaking it down. We have all the players in the room. We can come up with like epic 1. And watch this. I can do epic 2, assign it to a different team. I can do epic 3 and assign it to yet even another team, right? And so I can do this right here very easily, right? And so I just now created 3 different epics for 3 different teams that are aggregated together and held together by an initiative. This is powerful, folks, right? Because an initiative is usually multiple months, multiple teams working on it. And so this is going to allow you to break down those initiatives into separate projects. Because the other side, the flip side, is to go into those respective projects, create the 3 different epics, and then link them via the parent field. Not hard, but also not as easy as doing it here, right? And so the same thing goes when we start breaking down this epic, right? We can create a story. And again, we get to pick, where's this story going to live? This is going to be a client B story. Do this. This one's going to be another story for client D. Do this other thing, right? And so now we are creating different stories for different clients. Do this more, right? And I can very dynamically, very easily create the appropriate stories in the appropriate Jira project or board without having to go and remember who the owners and parents and everything is, right? And I can also just move things from here. It's really easy for me to grab this epic and go, you know what, this epic now belongs to this other initiative. And I can just move it that way, right? So very, very easy to just, again, quickly create stuff. Super intuitive. Creating the issues is just one piece. The next piece is the fields, right? So I'm going to pop this epic back where I had it down here, right? So once we create these things, maybe we want to set some start dates. So we could do that. We can go, this one's going to start this day, and this one's going to start end over here. And as you can see, the rectangle over here was made for that particular epic, given those start dates. We can then, if you want to, this is not a best practice. I don't recommend doing this, but because project managers, we like to be a little bit more micromanagement, we can give the start date to the story. No, this story needs to start on the same July 15th, but you got 2 days. This story can start on the 16th, and you got 4 days for that. And this one over here, the 15th and through the 17th, right? So you do have the ability to put dates on the stories. This is also a difference from this basic timeline, because over here, you automatically only inherit the dates from the sprint, unless you go to the view settings and change, or you go to the board configure timeline and you change that setting. But by default, Jira is only going to let you set the time, the dates for the epic, not the stories. But over here, you can set it for anything. Heck, if you have a subtask, right? If you come over here and create a subtask, this is a subtask, right? This subtask can also have dates. And this is not something you can do, again, in regular Jira. This is something that you can only do in this advanced roadmap. So being able to set dates for all your issue types, this is powerful. Okay. Now, it's not just dates. We can do components. We can assign it to people, right? So just down this list, I can very quickly just assign without having to worry. Very quickly, I can change priorities, right? I can just change it to all the different priorities without even thinking about it, really. Very quickly, I can assign it to releases, right? I can set up all my releases here, assign it to anybody. Now, any field, right? I have custom fields that are supported, but pretty much any field, story points, the sprint, reporter, the team, all of these, I can very quickly and dynamically just pop them in. Just pop them in as we're brainstorming, as we're talking, as we're chatting, and just create stuff. Now, the piece of resistance, as they say, on the timeline, once you have this, right, you can link this this epic. I can say this epic is dependent on this other epic. Now, unfortunately, to do that, I have to give a date to the epic, which I now did, right? But now I can grab this epic and link this together. And now I have a relationship, a blocks by relationship between this epic 1 and this epic 2. And I can do this not just between epics and epics, but I can do this between this story and this subtask. So I can do it not even just within my same issue type, but across different issue types. So that's very powerful, right? And so this allows me to see all my dependencies in the order of operations of stuff. So again, as a project manager, I'm hoping you're like drooling right now, right? Because this is powerful stuff here. This is what allows you to really leverage the power of the Jira Advanced Roadmap, right? Because you can map the whole thing together, right? If we have multiple initiatives that are depending on each other, we can do that, right? If we have something like this is totally doable, right? And what is this red line? This red line is basically Jira telling us, hey, Dodo, the end date of the pair of the thing you're blocked on is after your start date. So not good. So you want to move, you want to move the start date of your work so that they coincide the end date of what you're being blocked by is before your start date. So that way you don't run into that conflict. So if your lines are ever red, it means you're setting yourself up for failure and you have a start date that is incompatible with the end date of the task that you're dependent on. So you're going to want to, you can visualize that and then adjust and make adjustments in your plan. So this is powerful, right? So now I can move things around to kind of have better dependency management, right? And so I can do my flow a little bit better. Now, I've done a lot of stuff in this jar. And so I'm like ready, right? And we're like, this is perfect. I love this. We're good. You can just click on this blue button. It's going to summarize everything you got. Now, a couple of disclaimers here. If you're working collaboratively with the team, you can change, right? You can have issues changed by me, which is going to be your data, the changes you made. Or you can click on like issues changed today, and you're going to see what your other friends are doing, right? And so if they're making changes, if they're adding things, if they're changing dates and fields, this is a collaborative, dynamic, real-time tool. And so anybody can be making those changes. But when you publish, you get to cherry pick just my changes or all the changes, and you just hit that button. It is going to take a second or two for these changes to be pushed into Jira, and you'll be good there. Okay. So at this point, whoopsie, my changes didn't work. Something happened. I don't think I can. Oh, this project, I just gotta get rid of it. These JHADs just causing headaches for me. Now, what I just did was something very subtle. I deselected changes, so that was me cherry picking, right? So I'm basically telling Jira, don't push these into Jira. They're for some reason they're incompatible. They're not. I don't have time to troubleshoot in a live stream why they're not going in. But something is not right. Something is not quite right. And Jira's telling me and complaining about it. I don't know what it is right now. I don't have time to troubleshoot this in more detail. But anyways, believe me when I tell you the changes will go through and Jira will have everything in there. Okay. Now, I'm assuming it's because I have some required fields or something that I just didn't fill out. And again, I don't stage or script my trainings here, so we're gonna run into some problems. Now, that's pretty much the last part that I wanted to show you of the jar. I think you have enough informational, enough situational awareness to get started. Since I do have a couple of minutes before we end this, I do want to show you a couple of view settings that you should be aware of. So over here, you have a color by. Now the color by is interesting because you see these bars, they're bland, they're just gray. And so by default, they're set to be by status. So when you look at the status of an issue, and I'm going to collapse some of these so I can see the timeline and my fields together, right? But as you can see, all these are gray. So if you, as they get moved, right, as they move to in progress, they'll turn the different colors, right? They'll turn blue, I can turn in green when they go to done, right? That's because I have my color by status. I can also change it to be by component, by the epic, by the issue type, label, whatever's on this list. If it's not on the list, not possible. But if it is on the list, you got 2 thumbs up. More importantly, you got your sort by. Rank is the default. I would keep it at rank. And the reason I would keep it at rank is because this gives me the freedom to look at my work and go, okay, you know what? This initiative is the most important. I can move it to the top. When I expand that initiative, I have the 2 epics. I can go, this epic's more important, right? And when I decompose that even further, right? So if I bring this initiative up here and I have epics like this order is preserved. So when I push my changes into Jira, hopefully it works this time, right? But when I push my changes into Jira, you'll notice that the rank is what went into Jira. So when I come over here, right? Let me do, did I do these? Yeah. So when I come over here, you're gonna see 28, 29, 30, okay? And I click refresh over here, you're gonna see that 28, 29, and 30 is above 14, 3, 22, and 25 because the rank, I told Jira, this is more important. And so it's actually manipulating the order and the epics. My friends, this, if there's any takeaway that you get from this training, this is powerful because in your advanced roadmap, you can now set the priority, the order of operations of when the work must be executed by your team. You have the timeline, you have releases, you have your sprints. You can You can orchestrate the ultimate plan now because you have all the fields, you have dates, you have the blocks relationships, you have the priority, you have your milestones, so you know when those releases are going, right? You have the sprints, and you can set the order of everything, and you push those changes into Jira, and now your team, all they need to do is start with the item at the top and work their way down. And it makes communicating the priorities so much easier because the rest of Jira is impacted by that rank. Very, very powerful when it comes time to your team being in their sprint planning. They can sort by their epics, and those epics are in the right order. So now they can prioritize the stories in the highest epic because that epic has been influenced by the rank all the way from the initiative down. So very, very powerful stuff over there. And I think we are out of time. I'm going to take a second here to answer a question or two. Let's see if anything started. So we have a couple of questions. I'll just start with this one. Is it mandatory fields are not visible in plans? What should be the solution? The solution is that you bring those issues, those fields into your plan. The only fields that are not going to be supported are going to be text boxes. So like your description, right? That's not supported. So try to use fields. Try not to make a description mandatory. Otherwise, you're not going to yield good results. But most fields are possible to be brought in. So very, very easy there. So just bring in your custom fields in as well. What is the draft timeline in plans? How many days does the timeline keep the changes until it's reviewed? I would say unlimited. I don't think I've ever seen Jira forget whatever you have in your advanced roadmap. It usually just keeps it in there. Do we have to use the name Epic Story Task or whatever names? This is a great question. So when you're looking at the names in your timeline here and you see this drop down, you'll notice I have tacos, right? Watch this. This is directly influenced by the name that you give it in the hierarchy. So if you were to rename this to tacos 22 and I hit save, notice that I didn't change the name of the issue type, but I changed the name of the level, right? And I go back into my plan and I go to create issue. I'm now creating taco 22. So yes, you can change the name to be whatever you want, but it has to be over there. All right. I think that's all the time we have here, folks, for today. Let's just end things here. Where do we go from here? So scan the QR code, right? And follow me on LinkedIn. Do shoot me a message and tell me I took your JAR class and I want to connect with you because I get a lot of requests every day. And so this helps me understand and you at least that at least you know me and that you're not just the recruiter trying to get a job or something like that. Become a member. We have memberships here on the Jira Life. So if you got value out of this training, we have memberships here that you can join and be a active participant in the Jira Life. I also have my own membership channel or membership capabilities for APEC if you're interested in that as well. I have free courses on Salto. So again, everything's in that QR code. So if you want to take your skills again to the next level, check out my free courses. I do have one Udemy course right now. I'm working on 3. Guess what? This JAR in depth, all of it coming soon. So stay tuned for that. But I'm going to have maybe a 3 to 4 hour Jira Advanced Roadmap training coming to Udemy as well. Check out the merch store. Subscribe to the channels. If you haven't subscribed here to the Jira Life, we are growing, right? We are an actively, very, very, very active community here trying to grow this this community, this channel. So take a second here, smash the subscribe button if you haven't already for this particular Jira Life channel. And that's pretty much it. So thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you all. Hopefully you got some value out of this training. I know I only have an hour, folks, to teach you everything. So some things don't quite make it. But let me know in the comments or in the replay or reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions about anything. I'd be more than happy to chat with you. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Appreciate it. Check out the other trainings in this on the Jira Life and on my main channel. We got a lot of content for you. So hopefully you get some value out of that. Thanks, and we'll see you next month.